ایشون دانشجوی مهندسی مکانیک و فعال سابق دانشجوی دانشگاه تبریز، دانشگاه آزاد تبریز و فعال حقوق بشر هستند. در سال 2011 به دلیل فعالیت‌های دانشجویی بازداشت شدند و به 6 سال زندان محکوم شد. ایشون از 2 سال پیش در اروپا زندگی می‌کنند. صحبت‌هاشون در مورد 34 سال اعدام مخفیانه در زندان‌های تبریز هست. بفرمایید آقای پوریعقوب.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for having me here. In the beginning, I would like to thank you for having me here. In the beginning, I would like to thank Oyan News and Nafas Dar Qafas website, news websites, for their admirable efforts in exposing a part of hidden and unacknowledged executions at the central prison of Tabriz. I thank these two news websites for sharing some of the information that I needed for preparing this report. According to the reports of the human rights activists, the information published by the state-run media in Iran never reflects the reality of the executions and the situation of the official and unofficial detention centers in Iran. Specifically, in the case of executions, the censorship inside Iran also never allows the independent reporters to also report the real number of executions in the prisons. So as a result, that is the duty of human rights activists to reflect the reality outside and to expose the real number of executions. The human rights activists' information about the prisons other than Tehran and central areas is not enough at all. Unfortunately, the independent reporters are also focused mainly on the prisons of Tehran. This fact encourages the officials in other cities for more human rights violations and specifically for more hidden executions. For instance, I would like to share with you the report of 34 hidden or unacknowledged executions which have been taking place at the central prison of Tabriz during the last Iranian year and the 3 months that we have had from the new Iranian year. You have not heard about these executions in any official state-run media or report or interview. These executions have taken place while the judicial officials of Tabriz have only reported the 3 executions during the same time frame. Well, Tabriz is not an outlying city. It is one of the biggest cities in Iran. It is an industrial and economic center of Iran. So when we have 34 confirmed hidden executions there, we can guess what could happen in other cities. At the central prison of Tabriz, there are 4,500 prisoners at the moment. Almost 1,000 of them have been sentenced to death. This prison has 11 separate sections, and in section 9, all the prisoners are sentenced either to the more than 10 years imprisonment or death, most of them death, on charge of murder. At the moment, there are 405 prisoners being kept in section 9. Section 7, where mostly the prisoners have been charged with drug trafficking, also has a great number of death row prisoners. At the moment, there are almost 700 prisoners being kept in this section. And in section 12, which is a combination of both those who have been charged with murder or drug trafficking, there are big number of death row prisoners, and at the moment there are 550 prisoners kept there. In section 11, also there are many death row prisoners. In section 15, there are almost 50 prisoners being sentenced to death on charge of drug trafficking. During 1 week in November 2013, 9 prisoners were hanged in this prison. 6 of them were from section 9 and charged with murder. Between January 8th and February 8th, 2014, we received the report of 4 prisoners being hanged on charge of murder. During last March, 2 prisoners from section 15 were hanged on the same charge. Our colleagues could confirm 26 hidden executions at the central prison of Tabriz during last Iranian year. In 17 cases, the prisoner was charged with murder, and 3 prisoners were charged with drug trafficking. In 6 cases, we did not have enough information about the charges. A woman identified as Soraya, we do not have the last name, has been also hanged on charge of murder, but we do not have enough information about the exact date of this execution. I was imprisoned for some months in this very prison, and because of the lack of separate section for political prisoners, I was kept with some of those who have been executed during this time. I knew some of them personally. For example, in one case, who is identified as Abdullah Ajamlu, he was arrested when he was 19 years old, he was charged with murder, and he was hanged after serving 6 years in prison. Or another case, which is Ramin Atarod. He was also a young man from Azar, and he served 7 years before being executed. Since the beginning of new Iranian year, 8 prisoners have been hanged at the central prison of Tabriz. 6 of them were charged with drug trafficking, and all were from section 7. 1 other prisoner was charged with murder and had been kept in section 15. In one single case, the prisoner was given another chance by the family of the victim who was murdered, so he is still in prison. The last execution which took place in this prison was just 2 days ago, and it was a boy who was arrested when he was 17 years old on charge of murder, and he was hanged after 4 years. And this is another important issue, which is the high percentage of death row juveniles. As an example, when I was kept in section 11, I knew 2 young boys who were taken to that section from the special youth section, and these 2 were charged with murder, and they had come to prison when they were 16 or 17, and they were sentenced to death. According to the recent reports, the judicial authorities have contacted the families of the prisoners who are sentenced to death on charge of murder and told them if they cannot obtain the consent of the victims' families, their beloved ones will be hanged until mid-September. And they have told it to the families that we want to finish the case of those prisoners who have been charged with murder until mid-September. We do not want any of these prisoners in this prison anymore. So either they must be released, which is not possible, or they must be hanged. So the aim of this report was not only to expose a number of the hidden executions, which is a common problem in all prisons in Iran, but also to draw the attention to the central prison of Tabriz and to share the fact that the high number of hidden executions in this prison is really an important issue which must be addressed by the human rights activists, and I hope that other activists, other organizations will also work on this issue in order to be able to stop this trend, which is obviously going to be higher than this number that I told. So thank you very much.
متشکرم آقای پوریعقوب.